Business Morning. Joining me in the studio now is Chidi Umano. He's a head of shared services at the Central Bank of Nigeria. He also is overseeing the Cashless Lagos project. Thank you so much, Chidi, for being here. Now, you were here last week, I think, and we went through that 2 weeks ago. That was before it took place. It took off. That's the 1st of April. That's talking about the Cashless Lagos. Now, let me ask you, how has it been? It's 6 days later. And I know what I've heard from some people. I've received texts. Hopefully, we'll have some text messages after we received from the general public in reaction to the policy. But on your own part, how has it been since 1st of April up until now? Oh, yeah. It has been tough, and that's very expected. People are getting hands of it, trying to understand what it's all about. The implementation just kicked out on Monday, so we expect that there will be reactions, there will be fallout and all that. The key thing is that we're poised and we're trying to get everything together and then address the issues. But we're not worried. We know that these things will happen once you start a new thing. It's a change, so. Now, out of all the challenges you perhaps faced in a course since Monday, which ones stood out? Which ones are the ones that were the most prominent? Okay, there are quite a few of them, but I would like to point out that there were clear issues with even understanding and interpreting the policy itself. There were mixed, questions have been asked. Like I said, in my office in the CBN, our phones were jammed that day. We had questions even from banks and bankers themselves. We had customers. We had all sorts of people calling for interpretation of the policy itself. So we tried as much as possible to explain, and it's something we know is ongoing. We're reaching out to people through our advertisements and through our this kind of shows and all that. But the issues were there. Then had the issues. Another one was awareness. People didn't bite and don't even understand what it's all about in the first place. And these are the things that we know that will come up, and what we just try to do is to make sure that we keep addressing them as they come. Now, 2 weeks ago when you were here, you said this policy, where it all started from, at the bankers, it was discussed at the bankers committee with the CBN present and the banks themselves present. Now, you just said that part of the challenges you faced was getting some questions or calls from the banks themselves. Now, it's a little bit funny to have banks themselves who have been part of the process, or putting the whole thing together from the beginning, still having questions or still being unclear about some areas of the policy itself. No, this is just a fact of life. When I talk about banks and bankers, I'm talking about the whole gamut of people, from the CEO down to the tellers. I'm not saying that there are interpretations people will ask. For instance, if you say that some government, federal and state MDAs have been sort of exempted from it for purposes of lodgements into accounts that they use for revenue collections, for example. There are people, because you have customers who are also pressurizing you. You are in a fix at some time. Which of the MDAs are we talking about? Are you saying that a federal government institution like LUTH, for example, who takes fees or charges for medical treatments and want to lodge into account, is it revenue? In that sense that we're saying that we're going to exempt? I don't know if you understand. So there are a lot of this kind of interpretations that come up, and you need to clearly, talk to people and explain. So they just come up all the time. Customers will put pressure, and they come and tell you that this is being done in some bank, it's not done in this bank, why not doing it and all that. So you really need to be careful how these are handled. Now, for the CBN, perhaps there should be a properly spelled out document, because like you said, this whole thing is at risk of having different interpretations, by even the banks themselves, who are meant to who are meant to have the frontline contact with customers, who expect them to know, even if there's no CBN person around. So perhaps there should be a spelled out document that spells out every area, so that no gray area is left there in that document. I agree with you. Instead of having a bank calling you, actually we're not too clear about the MDAs, who's exempted, who's not exempted. No, something's brought, something well spelled out, so that the banks, even if they're in doubt, they can just refer to the document and tell the customer. Absolutely. It's something that is being done. It's something that has been done. But like I said, we'll continue to expand on it, because like I said, these issues come up, and it's because of the interest of the customers. Sometimes they pressurize you into insisting that certain parastatals are part of the deal and all that. So you need try to argue. They try to force through their own wishes and stuff. So these are the kind of things that happen, Now, for the let's go back to the basics. The withdrawal, the cash, the limits: 500,000 for individuals, withdrawals and deposits, 3 million for corporates. Now, some issues have been raised about that in terms of the processing fees. Some are saying that apart from the normal e-transactions, have come with their own or attached with their own fees. Now, the fees, processing fees, with having to deposit or withdraw above the 500,000 for the individuals. So some people say they're not comfortable with that. Because they're going to be facing normal fees for each transaction, then they'll be facing the penalty fees for withdrawing or depositing above that limit that the central bank has stipulated.
I don't understand that. There will be, you're saying that there will be
e-transaction, normal e-transaction, the e-transactions in the bank, those ones usually come with their own charges too, I'm told. And now that is in addition to what a customer will be charged in terms of when he comes to the bank and he's depositing higher than the stipulated limit. That's 500 for individuals and 3 million for
No, I mean, if you're making a deposit, I don't think there's any charge from the bank. If you come, once you're
higher than this.
No, I mean, of course, if you exceed the threshold, there will be a service charge. That has been clearly defined in the policy. But if you now want to transfer money electronically, the charges that come is different from that, and it's something, like I said, is we have clearly provided a guideline for e-payment charges that is very clear and transparent, and we expect customers to find out from their banks what it is. In fact, it's our intention to advise the banks to display those charges so that the customers will know what it is ab initio, before they even begin to proceed to do the transactions. And that's what we think, that's what we know we must achieve, because clearly we are worried that the charges sometimes are indiscriminate, sometimes they vary and all that. And like I said, we've come out with a clear guideline for banking charges on electronic payments.
Now, what do you think is the biggest concern for banks at this time as they try to understand the whole process and implement it as best as they can?
Yeah, I mean, it's managing the customers clearly, because I mean you want to keep them happy. The bank staff obviously have their targets to meet. They have profit to make. They have to satisfy their shareholders and all that. So, by the time you really need to manage both sides. The customers, of course, you can understand why some of them are reluctant. Change is not an easy thing. It's a lifestyle change they're trying to make people, so it's not something that people will embrace easily. And, you begin to have issues trying to manage the customers. But clearly, that's really, I just believe that with time, everybody gets used to it.
Now, what about their level of understanding? Because if some of them still are not, clear on some of the issues, what, in general terms, what would you say is the level of understanding from all the banks?
No, I mean, when I say that, I just say that what the bankers were asking for were basically clarifications. Not that they don't understand, but like I keep saying, banks, they actually have organized trainings for their staff all the time, and they actually most times invite my office in CBN. I will come there and actually explain and talk about it with everybody. It's a learning process for everybody, including us in CBN. It's something that is continuous. Yeah.
Are they having to put new software in place? That's the banks. I had a guest last week. He's a software provider, and he said that he didn't speak too optimistically. He said that some new softwares will have to be provided. He's not sure if the banks have that time. Because they'll have to be attending to customers and implementing or using the new software at the same time, that they might have some challenges. Well, that was what he said.
So
let me put that question to you.
No, these are back-end stuff.
But if we're talking about infrastructure, okay, maybe that's a bit different. But software, that's also very key.
No, it's important, all right. I know that has really been, it's a back-end stuff. It's been handled. I'm going to talk about software. I don't know if you're talking about software used for the mobile payments or software used for the point-of-sale terminals, but clearly there are software developers. So the
software that's part of this new cashless policy, perhaps maybe not the E.
No, we have the softwares. They are not only there. Okay. The process of having them certified, and before you even upload them onto any of the point-of-sale terminals, is clear and is being followed. Because when you get a POS terminal, it's just simply a machine. What makes it work, when it becomes a payment terminal really, is when you have the software working in it. And these softwares have clear ways of getting certified before they are installed in those POS terminals. Now,
we have been talking, because all that we've been saying, obviously, it covers banks, perhaps in the south or southeast. What about the bank or the customer who is in faraway Zamfara state? He goes, he's perhaps semi-literate or something, and that hasn't even begun to use the ATM or doesn't even know how it works. And then he's goes over the counter and he wants to, he's sold some cows or cattle as well. And he brings this huge amount of money and he's told that, sorry, but we're going to have to charge you.
Yeah, we understand these issues, and that's why, like I said, the policy has just been reviewed, and one of the major highlights is that the pilot in Lagos, which was supposed to monitor and see how the whole process goes, has been extended up until the 31st of December. So nationwide rollout will now begin by January 2013. And the whole idea, like I said, is just to see and begin to have a feel of how it works. Improve all the infrastructure, improve anything we need to do, tweak it a little bit when there's need to do that, just to make sure that everybody's carried along.
Okay, now some of the complaints or some of the text messages I got, I'll sift through some of them. One caught my attention about the issue of the third-party check. Someone said he was given a check of over 500,000, I think, and he was told by the bank when he got to the bank that it's above 150,000 or so. I can't remember what he said, but he did say that he wasn't allowed to cash that check. Let
me just repeat this because I think it's very important. That is one of the issues that came up, and I guess it's probably because of the adjustment in the threshold for individuals and corporates from 500,000, and So let me just state here very clearly: for third-party checks that is over 150,000 naira, it cannot be encashed over the counter. It must pass through the clearing system. In other words, you have to open an account if you don't have one, pay it into the account, and it goes through the normal clearing process.
That also, because I'm thinking, what if I don't want to open an account? I don't want an account. Can't the system cater for such classes of people? I just want to cash and go.
That's the point. The cash policy states that if a third-party check is given to you, and it's more than 150,000 naira, it must pass through the clearing house. We can discuss other issues.
Because other issues come up at that point. Yeah. The naira being a legal tender and has to be accepted whenever it is tendered.
Yes.
But although it's in the form of a check, but it's being refused from me, even though it's a legal tender, and the law states that it should be accepted.
Yes, nobody's saying it won't accept it.
But I'm being told to.
No, you're just told how it will be accepted. You're just told how it will be accepted. There's no problem. Nobody says there's a problem with that. The check is it's a legal tender, is acceptable, we accept it, or we're just telling you how it will be accepted. And we're saying, put into the clearing system so that you clear normally. And I mean, let's not forget, these things are not just done for the sake of it. There are other issues surrounding that as well. And we don't want to discuss the issue of fraud, surrounding, stolen checks. And I mean, we're not going to all that, but just know that it's a policy that means well for the nation, So, I mean, it's not just for fun,
Obviously. Hold your thoughts first. We need to take a break at this time. I have been talking to Chidi Umano. He's the head of shared services of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and he also oversees the Cashless Lagos project. And we have been looking at the progress made so far, though it's still too early to tell. But we're tracking the process. It did kick off on the 1st of April as the Cashless Lagos, and we'll be looking at some issues that have come up in the course of that. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning, and we're still talking Cashless Lagos, which kicked off on the 1st of April. Chidi Umano is still here. And now we're going to take some text messages. We put the question out there, or we have allowed Lagosians, since it's just in Lagos, to react to the cashless policy. And we're going to read out some text messages that we got from yesterday up until this morning. Now, this one is from Austin, Austin, you didn't state where you are writing or sent this from, but you say that you saw a post in one of the banks that there will be charges. Is that true? If it is, doesn't the CBN think it will scare people? Is it a means of raising funds for banks? Chidi, that's one from Austin there. Let's quickly take that one from Austin before we go to some others. Let's have your reaction to that.
Okay, I'll quickly say that the charges are not, the charges talking about is actually when you exceed the threshold. We are saying that you are allowed your cash deposits, cash withdrawal transactions of up to 500,000 for individuals, and for corporates 3 million naira. But if you exceed that, there'll be service charge, and that's really, I think that's what it's talking about. And we're saying that use the alternative means, and then you will not get charged. So it's not as if the banks, in fact, on the contrary, the banks are more interested in you going to the alternative payment channels, because that is cheaper for them at the end of the day. Like I said before, we have clear statistics where we say that the direct cost of cash management in Nigeria this year is expected to be over 200 billion naira. And this brings inefficiency. This is what we are trying to avoid, really, because it's translated to the kind of costs that their customers are being charged on a daily basis. The lending rates are high just because of this kind of cost. And that's what we're trying to see how to bring down. So the charge it's talking about is not that you come in and as you bring your money, you get charged. No. It's actually when you do exceed the prescribed limits. Okay, now looking at Austin's text message, let's look beyond it. I mean, obviously, he saw this recently. And so it just calls to question, once again, the awareness campaign. Perhaps the CBN needs to be more aggressive, and perhaps the banks themselves should be heavily involved in the awareness campaign. Because if somebody is just, I mean, this has been on for how long now? 7 months? Yes. But somebody is just saying that he just saw it recently in the post, and he's surprised, and he lives in Lagos. So perhaps even if Austin doesn't watch TV as often, and some other, perhaps there should be more aggressive campaign where wherever we go, maybe roadshows or something, it's all up in our faces and we are aware whether or not we read the news, read newspapers. Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. We have done quite a lot, but I agree we have to continue doing a lot. In fact, just yesterday, we had a meeting with our consultants on that, and they are planning massive roadshows. So a lot of things had taken place before. Like I said, we had stakeholder engagement sessions. We've had grassroots sensitization where we actually went to visit 25 markets, and then we have this mass media campaign that's still ongoing. Like I said, if something doesn't really hit you, you may not get the punch immediately. That's really what's happening. People are now beginning to see and then beginning to react and say, oh, this was what I saw last week. Oh, this is what this is all about. And they begin to ask questions.
Okay, let's take one from Itelgo Fred. He wrote in from Abuja, and he says, he was asking, is Nigeria economically and technologically ready for a cashless economy? Is this exercise not politically motivated? Well, that's taking another angle there, but we'd like you to, of course, to react to that. Fred Itelgo writing from Abuja.
What's the question?
He says, is Nigeria economically and technologically ready for a cashless economy, and is this exercise not politically motivated?
Okay, for the first one, economically and technologically ready, it depends on how I want to see it. But for me, the answer is yes. There's no better time to start it than today. In terms of technology, there are a couple of issues. Do you understand? They do exist. But the question you have to ask yourself, are we going to now sit down and wait until everything is ready before we start? Or do we try to find creative ways of going around it? 2 days ago, the CBN governor himself, we had this meeting with the telcos and NCC in attendance, and the issue of the discussion was, how do we increase the uptime? How do we get the GPS connectivity to work? And certain decisions have been reached. Everybody's into this, and it will continue to improve. There will be challenges. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And, we just can't sit and wait and say until everything is ready. Being economically ready, I don't see why not. Everybody who can buy fuel, everybody who has a POS, who has a telephone, a mobile phone, and anybody can use cards to effect payments. I mean, there's no other way to get ready. And this is what we must do.
Okay, let's take another one from, okay, we're still taking more of the texts. This is from Olumuyiwa. Olumuyiwa, you didn't state where you're writing from. You said that why has the policy not started in Abuja, and what is the CBN doing to ensure a 70% success rate before the end of 70 quarter? Of course, that brings us back to what we just talked about, awareness.
Why didn't it start in Abuja? Lagos is clearly way ahead. I mean, it's the economic nerve center of the country. That's not in doubt. And in terms of infrastructure, Lagos, tops, the list. And when you think about even the exposure, the Lagos state government had been in the forefront of e-payment and all that. So they clearly do understand it. And they're giving us great support. We work with them. They understand what it's all about. And in terms of exposure, in terms of, the Lagos audience, the Lagos people, they understand what we're talking about. And, we just thought that we should start from Lagos.
Okay, let's take another one from Sajele Clement. He's writing from Sapele, Delta State. He says that, don't you think the CBN is a bit hasty in implementing the cashless policy, considering things that are not in place? He talks about cybersecurity, adequate publicity, and the grassroots and legal framework.
Well, wow, we have all these things are there in various stages. The awareness has been done. The infrastructure issues, like I said, we discussed that before. The cybercrime thing, and it's sometimes, well, I guess, sometimes just because people are not aware of what's going on. For instance, last week there was a breach in global payments in Atlanta. There was some kind of crack into the system, and about 1.5 million cards were affected. What did we do in Nigeria? Immediately, the CBN called a meeting of all the stakeholders, MasterCard, Visa Card, the processors in Nigeria, and the thing was reviewed and discussed, and all the issues, how it will affect Nigeria, were tackled and, exhaustively settled. So it's not as if people sit back and don't do anything. These are the things that we continuously face. And for the laws I'm talking about, the what we call the bills have been sent to the National Assembly, and they're working on it. Some advocacy groups have also been talking about it in the paper. So I think there's a bit of pressure on the National Assembly, and those things will be passed very, very soon, I imagine. Okay,
let's take some more that we have here. Let me don't want to skip the ones that I already have. Let's take this one from his Nelson Alfred. Nelson sent this text from Ojodu, Lagos, and you say that how does the CBN intend to encourage compliance from, he says, the grocery industry, specifically of farmers, herdsmen, fishermen, through all the middlemen and bulk users, buyers? I'm not sure. Do you understand that question? No,
I think what it's trying to say, how do we enforce it? How do we make it happen? Like I said, it's not a question of, it's not a bully kind of, what we're trying to do is to educate them, let them understand the benefits of what we're talking about. And like I said, once it begins to get the critical mass, using it, everybody will now key into it. Even the farmers will personally go and chase after, alternative forms, point of sale, mobile phone, for mobile payments and all. That's what is expected. It will just keep growing into people, and they'll begin to even ask for them.
Well, I imagine that particular aspect will probably take a while to come to fruition. Let's take one more, perhaps the last one from Dr. Oyekunle. Well, you didn't state your location where you're texting in from, but he says that I like the policy, but please give us a CBN platform where we can send money safely from one bank account to another. That way we don't carry so much cash. Not all banks provide the online platform, and that's quite interesting. I want to imagine that all banks have gone, they have the OE payment system up already.
Oh yes, I believe so. And we have NIBS, the settlement system. They have provided major products. In fact, there's one I particularly like, the instant payment. That actually you're able to move money into any account in any bank in Nigeria, and as names suggest, instantly. And I know it's been done today by nearly all the banks. So the question is being able to engage the banks and talking to them, telling them the kind of transactions they want to do, and getting the appropriate advice and appropriate medium to use.
Dr. Oyekunle should go and talk to his bank or his account officer.
Yes, please. Because the platforms are there, they do exist. It's just discussing with your banks and finding out which one is very appropriate for the kind of business you want to do.
Okay, now is there a monitoring team in place? Excuse me, is there a monitoring team in place for maybe perhaps from the CBN going around to ensure that the process, maybe from bank to bank, to ensure that the process is being implemented or carried out?
Oh yes, in fact, the CBN has done a lot in that. We have a division that is called PSPO, Payment System Policy and Oversight, created just to monitor this, and we've gone ahead to actually create a department. I mean, a department had just been created, brand new department, consumer protection, and what they try to do is just to engage the consumers, advocacy rules, making sure that they understand what's going on, and managing their complaints, because we understand how important it is. You know, all these things we know will help deepen financial inclusion, and that's what we are trying to achieve with this policy as well.
What about hotlines? Should there be like some kind of customer care hotlines, 24 hours, where questions such as these can be entertained?
Yes,
and
we have numerous hotlines. Like I said, in the first 3-4 days I was telling you about earlier, that the phones in my office was jammed with us, people seeking clarifications. The numbers are there, they're out there. It's all in the adverts that you have in the papers, and you can also get them from banks as well. Beyond that, we also every bank has appointed a coordinator with his number listed on their websites and newspapers and handbills and all that. They do exist. People should just try and find out who they need to talk to. But this has been clearly defined and specified. Yeah. Okay,
now let's digress a little bit. Now, in terms of when money is being moved around in the system, the issue of fraud coming in, some people's accounts being hacked into either ATM or some other devices. Now, some people or customers have been clamoring for the enactment of a law that will protect them in a situation of a fraud where a customer loses huge amounts of money and he's not being repaid by the bank. Perhaps there should be some kind of law that will protect the customer.
There is a guideline already that is in place. That's the place how this is handled. You have a situation where you will say that anytime there is some kind of fraud or some kind of problem that exists in the payment system, that you have 72 hours to get a response from the bank once you lay a complaint. And then we have about 10 days for resolution. If it doesn't happen, then it can escalate to CBN. And like I said, the bill that has been sent is part of what, like I said, the National Assembly is looking at that, and that clearly spells out what's expected of everybody in the ecosystem.
When you say resolution, do you mean in the case of a fraud where the money just disappears from an account or from the system? When you say resolution, do you mean that the bank identifies where the money went or who stole it, and the person is competent?
The time gap being given is actually to go through the entire value chain just to find out where it's stuck and who is responsible. Like I said, this is not what the public does, but we have defined liability shifts. So at a certain point, when the bank is going to pay, when the process is going to pay, when it's clearly defined. It's just that going through the system to find out at which point something has gone wrong. Because most times it's not that the money is stolen. It's just that maybe there's a connectivity issue. The account has been debited but it hasn't hit the database of the bank, so the account hasn't been debited in the bank, but this transaction has taken. So it just resolving the issues as they come, and it just goes through the chain, and the person who is liable just pays immediately.
Okay, with all these policies being taken up with these new changes in the banking system, particularly, do you think perhaps this also calls for some kind of capacity building, especially for the banks themselves or personnel of the bank, for them to be adequately equipped, as it were, more than they are right now, to help face as you said, the CBN or the banks themselves to solve these challenges as they go forward, talking about the cashless policy?
Absolutely. Like you said, it's a shift. Do you understand? So that requires new skills, it requires new manpower, it requires also, before, you used to have bulk counting rooms, for example, in banks. You used to have massive
banks,
and all that. So you're going now to shift to technology, to alternative means of payment. It means that things are also going to shift towards that. You need to find new skills, new people, new hires, things will come. And like I said, they're doing that. I've told you that my office is involved in a lot of training of even the bank staff and other people. We come out for every enlightenment program that we can lay hands on. And, that's really capacity building, really.
Okay, so going forward, obviously you're still very optimistic about this process. It will work out, and by December the 31st of this year, what do you expect the average Nigerian hopefully to be saying about this cashless policy?
I would expect an average Nigerian to be carrying at least 2 to 3 cards in his wallet, just like the average European, who carries about
Oh,
5.
really? We're already in April, we're already in the second quarter. We have just, what, 2 quarters to
No,
go?
but it just took off last week.
Okay,
Or even this week. So, in the moment to catch up, like I said, it just started.
Okay, we'll definitely bring you back, obviously, because of the year.
I would love to be
at the
here.
end of the year.
I would love to come back and we'll see. How
Perhaps I have 2 or 3 customers who will be here also to tell us their story.
No problem.
Okay, thank you so much, Chidi, for being here and for talking to us about the cashless policy. We do appreciate your time. I have been talking to Chidi Umeano. He's the head of shared services at the Central Bank of Nigeria. He's also overseeing the cashless Lagos policy. We have been looking at the cashless Lagos policy. It took off on the 1st of April. We've been tracking the latest development, and of course, all the challenges are still there. We'll take another quick break now, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, Nigeria's money markets are also closed for the Easter holiday today, but let's take a look at what the numbers looked like yesterday. That's Thursday. And now the cost of lending at the interbank market closed the week broadly lower. We saw core money coming down to around 14.5%. Now, Treasury bills from the open market operations matured yesterday, putting more liquidity into the system and dipping rates marginally across the board. The OBB rates were also slightly lower to around 14% on average. And at the interbank foreign exchange market, the Naira ended lower against the US dollar at the interbank foreign exchange market, closing at 157 Naira 70 kobo from around 157 Naira 65 kobo previously. Well, the Naira market got a firm boost this week on dollar sales from 3 energy companies, Chevron, ExxonMobil and Royal Dutch Shell, which who sold a combined amount of about $240 million US dollars. Well, the market was also expecting some liquidity inflow from the NMPC, but that didn't come. But the Naira still held steady against the dollar, while the CBN this week at its bi-weekly auction on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday sold dollars totaling about $250 million US dollars to the market. Well, those are the numbers from the money market. The Channels News Track is just about 6 minutes away, and that's how we'll wrap up today's edition of Business Morning. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Esther Ubodaga. Have a great weekend, and of course, enjoy your Easter.